Hello everyone, welcome to Nibble Pop. In today's class, we are going to discuss Sita, a very short poem by Toru Dutt. So I'm going to give you a very simple explanation of this poem in easy language so that you can understand what this poem is about and what are the things which make this poem so beautiful. Before beginning the poem, let me tell you a little bit about Toru Dutt. Toru Dutt was born in 1856 when India was under the British rule. Her family converted to Christianity when she was around 6 years old. She spent a lot of time abroad in Europe but died at a very early age, at the age of 21. She is considered to be one of the most promising Indian poets who wrote in English, and she also wrote in French language. The poem which we are going to discuss today is primarily based on the mythology of Sita from Ramayana, and we will see how this poem becomes not just about Sita, the individual about whom Ramayana is written, but also about any woman suffering in India. Now, what do we see in this poem? We see that a mother is telling the story of Sita to her 3 children. Now, usually mothers tell stories and legends of old times to their children at bedtime. And we find a very beautiful domestic scene here where the children are listening to their mother with complete attention. But as she goes on describing the story of Sita, they start to feel sad for Sita because Sita led a life of such suffering. And then we see that when the poem ends, the poet herself feels that she is feeling sad because of the childhood which she can never go back to. Okay, so this poem has different layers. First, we will try to understand the meaning of the lines, and then we can go for some analytical approach. 3 happy children in a darkened room. What do they gaze on with wide open eyes? So 3 children, they are very happy because their mother is telling them a story and they have a very peaceful, satisfying life right now. They are not worried by anything. They have no tension in life. So they are very happy and they are in a darkened room because it is night time and they are about to fall asleep. What do they gaze on? Gaze on means look at. So when their mother is telling them Sita's story from the Ramayana, then they are looking at this story as if they can see the story in front of their eyes. Now when our mothers and our grandmothers tell us stories, then they can create a beautiful picture and we see that picture. So these children, they are also looking at the picture of Sita which their mother is describing before them. So what is that picture like? A dense forest where no sunbeam pries. Pries means enters. So it's a very dense forest. So now she is describing the Dandakaranya or the Dandaka forest. Now all of you know more or less the story of Ramayana. Which scene of Ramayana is described here? Not the forest where Sita was kept by Ravan. This is not that forest. This is that forest where Sita spent the last days of her life when Ram sent her away from him in exile. So this is about that part of Sita's life which is away from Ram, when she is suffering and raising her children all by herself, all alone. So this is a very sad picture of Sita which is described here. And the forest where Sita is spending her time, where she later on gives birth to Love Kush. Okay, this was the ashram where she spends her time away from the kingdom. This forest is described here beautifully. A dense forest. So it's a very remote forest filled with trees, and there is absolutely no light because the trees are so close together. And notice the repetition of the word dense. So she is using the word dense 2 times to emphasize or give more stress on how dense the forest was. And in its center, a cleared spot. So when there are ashrams in a forest, then usually a place is cleared out. The trees are cut down and the bushes are removed so that the ashramites can stay. So this was the clear spot. There bloom gigantic flowers. So it was a place where you could see huge flowers, gigantic flowers on creepers, and these plants which were there, these were creepers. So creepers are not strong plants. They are the plants which grow along a wall or grow along the ground. So those are called creepers, and they are very beautiful. There bloom gigantic flowers on creepers that embrace tall trees. So there were tall trees and there were creepers embracing them, winding around these tall trees. There, in a quiet, lucid lake. Lucid means something which is very clear. So there's a very clear, sparkling, clean lake filled with water. The white swans glide. So it's a beautiful scene which we see in front of our eyes. And everything is so peaceful. There, whirring from the brake, the peacock springs. This phrase, whirring from the brake, it is actually a reference to Alexander Pope's poem, Windsor Forest. Alexander Pope was a British poet. And this poem, Windsor Forest, it is about a forest which is in England. But Sita is staying at Dandaka Forest, which is in India. So when Toru Dutt, she is taking this phrase from Alexander Pope's poem, she is trying to connect these 2 nations as if literature has no boundaries. You see, at one time she is describing a forest of India belonging to an ancient time. And then she is referring to Windsor Forest, which is in Europe. The peacock springs there. Herds of wild deer race. So you have this peacock which is springing. You have wild deer which are racing about. So it is a very serene, natural surrounding where this poem is set. And this whole scene is told in the form of a story by this mother to the 3 children. There, patches gleam with yellow waving grain. So at one end you have grains which symbolize prosperity. And on the other hand, you hear about the blue smoke. There, blue smoke from strange altars rises light. Altars means when you are worshipping any god or goddess, then you arrange for a puja vedi. That is called an altar. So on that altar, you offer sacrifices and you sometimes light a fire. And from that fire, the fumes come out. And these fumes are colored blue. Blue smoke from strange altars rises light. So on one hand, you have yellow grains and then you have blue smoke. So you have in front of your eyes a rainbow of colors when Toru Dutt is describing this forest to you. There dwells in peace the poet anchorite. Now she is referring to Rishi Kavi Balmiki. Note the word poet anchorite. Anchor means the support for a ship which keeps it safe in a harbor. In Hindu culture, the sages and rishis, they are considered to be the spiritual leaders who are acting like anchors, supporting the Hindus, supporting their belief, their faith. So in that way, a rishi is an anchorite. And because Valmiki was not just any ordinary rishi, he was one of the greatest poets because he wrote the Ramayana, you see. So Valmiki was a poet anchorite. Now what is very interesting is that, remember I told you when we just started this class that Toru Dutt's family had converted to Christianity when she was very young. So she was brought up in a Christian environment and she definitely considered Christ to be her anchor. But when she is talking about Valmiki, a Hindu sage, she is using this word anchorite even when she herself is a Christian. This means that if a person is born in India, then they imbibe in them, they contain in them these sentiments which even after conversion into any other religion, they continue to contain. So this is what we see here, and that is why she is calling Valmiki the poet anchorite. But who is this fair lady? Now notice she is not mentioning the name of Sita. The story of Ramayana is so popular, like everybody knows about it, that she knows that once she describes this forest, she talks about this poet anchorite, people will realize that she is talking about Sita here. So this is her way of suggesting without mentioning. Who is this fair lady? Who is this beautiful lady? Not in vain she weeps. In vain means fruitlessly, without any result. So Sita is weeping, but that is also for a greater cause. What is that? Sita's weeping, Sita's sorrow is not something that will die with Sita. It will remain even after Sita is gone. And how will it remain? Not in vain she weeps, for lo, at every tear she sheds, tears from 3 pairs of young eyes fall amain. So every time Sita is dropping a tear from her eyes, every time she is weeping, the 3 children who are listening to the story of Sita, they are also weeping. So this is how Toru Dutt, she is connecting the world of story, the world of culture, to this personal world, to this small domestic world. She is bridging the gap between cultural and personal. The word amain means with much force, with much speed. So this shows the intensity of sorrow which these small children are feeling, and bowed in sorrow, so they are bending their heads in sorrow, are the 3 young heads. It is an old story, the story of Ramayana. It's a very old story. And the lay which has evoked sad Sita from the past is by a mother sung. So the word lay means story or a tale. So this story which has evoked Sita from the past, evoked means to call somebody. So it's like a planchet where you call the dead from their deathbed. Just like that, Sita is called from the pages of Ramayana. How? By the mother who is singing or telling the story about Sita. So here Toru Dutt is telling us how a storyteller can turn a character from a story into a real character. And this is what the mother is doing. It is hushed at last. The story stops. The mother has to stop because she has household work to do, or maybe her husband had come and she needs to attend to him. So she is taken away from the children because of her responsibilities. The story is hushed, silenced. And somehow this word hushed has a very peculiar meaning. It is as if somebody is stopping this mother from telling any further. As if the sadness of Sita is not something which society is very comfortable speaking about. Anyway, and melts the picture from their sight away. So the moment the mother stops telling them the story, then that picture of that forest, of that sad woman, that melts away, that disappears, that vanishes from their eyes. But it remains in their mind somehow. Yet shall they dream of it until the day. So maybe the picture has vanished from their eyes, but it will remain fresh in their dreams. It will remain in their memories. So this is how stories get new life through storytelling. Generation after generation, the same story gains more and more power because it remains in the memory of the listeners. When shall those children by their mother's side gather, ah me? Suddenly, the poet's voice is getting more personal. Now she is not talking about just any 3 children. She is talking about herself. Remember, I told you she died at the age of 21. Sadly, her sister and her brother died even before her death. And both of them died of tuberculosis. And after the death of her brother and sister, Torudutt wrote this. Like by the time she wrote this poem, both of them were dead. And somehow this image of 3 children sitting with their mother, this is a chunk from her own memory. Like she used to do that when she was young. And somehow when she ends this poem, she feels that she and her siblings, her brother and sister, will no more be together because both of them are dead. Ah me, this expression, ah me, this is an exclamatory expression and it shows the sorrow which is there in the poet's heart. As erst at eventide. So erst means long ago, eventide is evening. So long ago in some evening, she used to sit with her siblings and listen to their mother telling them the stories of Sita, of Ramayana, of epics. Interestingly, although they grew up in a Christian household, the stories were mostly taken from Hindu mythologies. And Torudutt, all her life, she showed intense interest in these mythologies and she somehow felt very close to these stories. So when she's talking about the sorrow of Sita, the sorrow of exile, going away from your real place, she is also talking about her own sorrow because remember she was also taken away from India. And all her life she had wandered through places, never had a place which she could safely call her home. So she also had these longings, these sufferings that Sita had. So somehow she is connecting the sorrow of Sita with the sorrow of this mother who is telling this story to her children and to herself, to her own situation. And that makes this poem an autobiographical one. Autobiographical means where the poet or the writer writes something very similar to what happened in their lives. So when you have elements of a poet's or a writer's life in a story or a poem, you call that autobiographical. It comes from the word autobiography. Now, I hope I have explained to you the poem and analyzed it for you as well. So what you have to remember about this story is that it bridges the gap between the personal and the cultural. The second thing is the role of individuals in telling and retelling of stories. How stories are given new life through the art of storytelling, and the place of gender in culture and stories and how they are related to each other. Right? So this poem is essentially a simple one, although it conveys a lot of messages and is basically a melancholic, a sad poem. And it is more sad because it is written by someone who died at such a young age. If you have any difficulty in understanding any part of this poem, do let me know in the comment section. We will be providing with you a PDF with important MCQ question answers and vocabulary guidance along with some grammar questions which you might find useful in your exams. I hope you have found this useful, and do let me know which other poems I can take up to help you out. So till next time, have a nice day. Bye-bye.